There was a lot of setup here, especially by individuals like Bill Gates, that wasn't just funneling money into the mainstream media, because he gave hundreds of billions of dollars to the mainstream media. That buys a lot of influence. There's smart people who know what's going on.
I mean, if we could, it's so annoying to do the cliche Bill Gates.
No. It's important to mention here because this is a man that has far more influence than we even know about, and we already know. Hundreds of millions of dollars to the mainstream media. A new report just came out.
Give me some evidence other than the guy says stupid things to the press.
He doesn't say stupid things to the press. He buys off the press. He gave them $319 million to media outlets like CNN, NBC, NPR, The Atlantic, the BBC, The Guardian. All are on his payroll. All are on his paycheck.
What does it mean?
And we talk about the way that he positions himself in society, especially
what does it mean? What does it mean?
The things like the vaccine industry.
Explain to me beyond, I saw a guy do a bunch of things that make me question him. Look, I don't like the guy. I think he's got weird views on the world. I don't trust him. I think he's a bad person. I look at his history and how he started Microsoft and how he moved through Silicon Valley, much like Steve Jobs, also not a good guy. But the problem I have with this, like, here's a guy who did a thing. It's like, yo, what's happening in the world right now involves thousands of people. We can talk about Donald Trump's role in 15 days to slow the spread, but I don't think Trump was a big player in exactly what was going on. I think he got swept up in it. We can talk about Joe Biden's attempt at a vaccine mandate, which gets struck down, and then everyone's like, but you know, Bill Gates.
But Biden's not there. Biden is not a human being who's not even consciously there. There's other people behind him. There's special interests behind him. There's major corporations behind him. There's globalists behind him.
And we can talk about how Pfizer has been dumping money into these companies, into the media outlets.
Sponsored by
Pfizer. Getting no
and why
liability
not?
contracts.
Then why shouldn't we talk about them? They're huge influence players. There's big players.
The issue
there's
I
puppets
take
and there's players.
Is that
I want to
people
talk about
have
the players,
always done
not the
this.
puppets.
They've always done this. The Koch brothers are doing this, and George Soros is doing that.
They are.
And Bill Gates is doing this.
Not
and
they
I'm like,
are.
you want me to give you a list of the 2,000 billionaires who are all doing this? Look, I get it. It's frustrating for me because people talk about Bill Gates in some superficial manner, like, did you know that he gave money to the media? What does that mean? Tell me what that means. I know he owns influence. The dude has had influence for decades. They all do. This one story does not say anything about the fact that we have
one story
corruption.
after another story after another story.
No,
the
it's an
man is
obsession.
literally trying to control the weather. It's his obsession. He's making GMO mosquitoes. If you think this
You're
person,
obsessed.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you
No,
are.
I'm not. Absolutely not.
You can name
I'm
George
concerned.
Soros. You can name George Soros and the DAs he's been funding. This is why what
Exactly.
frustrates
And
me.
why
about,
shouldn't you?
What frustrates me here is you get a story from June 2021 where BARDA, which is a bioresearch lab in the U.S., I believe through HHS, gets a weaponized smallpox drug approved. I believe it was approved, but I could be wrong about this. Bill Gates comes out and says, I'm worried about weaponized smallpox. And all of a sudden, the conspiracy realm lights up saying Bill Gates is doing whatever. And it's like, dude, he read the news.
That's not what we said. I never said anything about that.
I didn't say you did. I'm saying the issue I take is...
Yeah, there's other people that take it too far, of course.
And so the issue I take is, like, I've just had so many conversations about the obsession over Bill Gates.
Yeah, I think it's a red herring to go after the individuals because, like, if you have a corrupt king that's terrorizing his subjects, you want to remove that king, you're going to get another king. And he may or may not terrorize. What you want to do is disrupt the monarchy and change the system so that there is no possibility for a king.
You mean replace the puppets? So the puppets look all
make
nice
it
and
so that-
different, and
make
it's a
it
red
so that-
puppet and a blue puppet?
Avoid
no.
that. And
No, I want to
this
get the
is
puppeteers.
Like, you want to fix the system so that
failed-
one guy can't become a multi-trillionaire.
Listen,
maybe.
Here's the problem. Right now, we have a culture, and culture is more powerful than politics and law. As I've mentioned numerous times, the easiest way to explain it is there's wacky laws in Massachusetts. You know, they have a law from the 1600s. You can't put a pie on your windowsill on Sunday afternoon because it attracts bears. And now no cop will enforce that. So when you get 100 million people and you're standing before them and they say, tell us what's happening. You say, this Bill Gates guy spent money in the press. They go, what am I supposed to do with that?
No, I wouldn't say that.
No, stop.
Yeah.
Or you say, do not let the government put their boot on your neck. Do not let them mandate medical procedures. Influence the culture. I have never I don't like doing these bits where it's like, did you know person X did X or did Y? You have all of these YouTubers who make videos about people, and then regular people who are standing at ready saying, I want the world to be a better place for my kids. I want to make sure I have my freedoms and my liberties. What should I do? You should be met at Bill Gates. And they go, okay, I won't fight in any meaningful way for principles. I won't focus on what's happening in my community. I won't vote locally. I'll complain about Bill Gates. Then those people go out to rallies and they hold up big sign saying Bill Gates. And then when regular people show up, they go, look at the crazy people. Look at the crazy people.
No.
So this is what frustrates me. Whenever it comes to the vaccine stuff, everyone's like, let's have a debate over science, and we're not scientists. And I'm like, why? Why? When we can just say we are advocates for freedom. We are American citizens who know the history of this country and the founding fathers who said we demand freedom and respect, and tell the people, instead of trying to pretend to be a scientist who's going to argue about medical efficacy, we can just say, I reject your attempts to mandate a medical procedure on me.
The two are not exclusive. You could have both. And I don't just obsessively talk about Bill Gates. I talk about him. I talk about all the other very influential people who are doing that. But I also talk about solutions. I also talk about personal responsibility. I also talk about the need for you to wake up from this trauma-based mind control and psychosis that people are going through by watching the mainstream media, by watching what Bill Gates funds, by watching what all these other individuals finance
Nobody
in order
knows or
to
cares
trick
about
you
Bill
and
Gates.
lie. I
Nobody
think they
knows
do.
or cares
I
about Bill
disagree
Gates.
with you. I absolutely
You live in
disagree with
bubble
you.
world.
No. I don't think I do, because if people actually do find out the reality of the true existence of this world, which many of them are right now, many people are waking up. When people see the true reality of it, they start understanding the players behind the scenes here. Then they could start implementing policies where they're not victimized by these players and their games that they play on the rest of the population.
Win. We don't get towards a convention of states, assuming that's what we want. We don't get towards a populist uprising because a bunch of people went outside complaining about Bill Gates.
I'm not saying complain about Bill Gates. I'm saying understand the problem and be able to diagnose it correctly without playing their games of, here's a puppet. Vote for this puppet. This puppet's going to make things better. No. There's bigger players behind the scenes. And if you understand, hold on, I'm not done yet.
Your billionaire changes
I let you
every
talk.
week.
I let you talk, right?
Your billionaire changes every week.
No,
it's pointless. And
I
you're
disagree.
Like, we go through the months and months of George Soros as the guy funding the DAs.
Yeah, that's important.
We are not seeing parents rise up and revolt because they found out about Bill Gates. We're seeing their children and their families being affected. They're seeing their culture be destroyed, and it's
who's doing
so
that?
common.
Who's doing that? Who's responsible
for all that stuff?
Who's doing all this bad stuff, Tim?
It doesn't matter.
It does.
I think it's a result of the system. If you have a technocracy, removing one technocrat, another one will fill the void. So we want to figure out a system
that's a politician, Ian.
Same with
not
politics. Same with their politics. You remove one president
not
and
the
another
upper
one.
echelons, because there is an inner circle. That inner circle deserves to be addressed. We have different approaches. I think it's important, along with going after the solutions, along with understanding the full problem that we're seeing in front of us, to be able to fully deal with the problem. You got to fully understand it. You can't just be looking at the consequences. You can't just be going after the side effects. Okay.
And the challenge we have is that none of this is relevant, because what matters is culture. Culture building. Politics is downstream from culture. And a bunch of people who have said, I've identified a source of the problem, and I believe it's Bill Gates, are going to convince no one and change nothing.
The truth
matters. But you know what? People want a symbol for their oppression. So they isolate an individual. For a long time, it was George Soros, and it still is. Now Bill Gates is filling that role. Every single story, every quote, every comment is brought up. And I'm just wondering, like, are we having a debate about this one guy we don't like? Or are we going to talk about how we're going to influence the culture so that these laws can't exist?
Well, the culture is downstream from the technology that's basically functioning as a gatekeeping system, allowing what culture is seen where. And then you got to say, who built that centralized technology? And Bill did build some of it. But a lot of people have built a lot of and are in the process of building centralized technology system. I think Alison McDowell is really a fascinating human being.
I would love to know. So, like, some of these solutions, like, I agree with what you're saying. Especially when we point at certain people, I want to know, like, what is the actionable step? So when you're talking about solutions, I would love to hear some of what you think would actually be solutions for people in mass families or whatever, like at home, in the home solutions. And do any of them have to do with DMT?
DMT is a personal decision that individuals should do their own research, their own homework on.
We're all on DMT, by the way.
Yes, of course. So we all go through it when we dream every single night. That's something that should be up to the individual to look up to. But again, I think understanding exactly what's going on is the first step towards dealing with the problem. Obviously, we have a very sick society. Obviously, we have a very corrupted society. Understanding how it's corrupted, who it's corrupted by, and how we cannot be corrupted by it, I think is the first step. Whether it's the school, the indoctrination centers, whether it's the medical centers that keep charging people $30 for an aspirin, that rob people of their wealth and health, whether it's the banking system, whether it's all the systems that are thrown and shoved down our throats every single day that are scams Ponzi schemes against the American people. When we are victims to it, when we are blind to it, we give all of our power to these individuals. And I'm saying these individuals are doing all this. I think that's an essential part to break it all down and to say, hey, you know what? Maybe I won't vote with my dollar at this particular business. Maybe I won't put my child in an indoctrination center. Maybe I will look into homeschooling. Maybe I won't depend on all my food from, the Amazon or a Walmart. Maybe I'll start looking into farming. Maybe I'll start building a community of people that I could actually have a support system around me. And I think just acknowledging like, hey, there's some big bad people out there. Some of them are sociopaths, understanding that reality and not blaming everything on generalized topics like culture. Culture is absolutely important, but you build that culture from a sense of reality, not from a sense of, I just want this, let me go get this.
This is why, the freedom-minded... look, I used to work for a bunch of nonprofits. I used to fundraise for Greenpeace. This was about for a month and a half. I worked for a couple really big national nonprofits. And I was a nation's best fundraiser. I was able to walk up to a random person on the street, make them hand over their credit card to me in 30 seconds. This is what the job is. You've seen them on the street. They say, hey, come over here and talk to me. And I will tell you, the one thing that never convinces anybody is blaming a person they don't know. They're confused by it. How does that affect me? Who is this guy? What does he do? What does this mean? Bill Gates has bought influence in the media. He's manipulative. He has these weird ideas, and he's not a doctor. And they say, that's weird. What is it? What does he do? I don't understand. In order to give someone enough information to understand why Bill Gates is a bad person, and why George Soros is a bad person, and why these other billionaires, because there are many and many, many of them, is a bad person, you'd have to put them in a school for years to really break down all this stuff.
I disagree.
And so what you end up having is you have a bunch of people who've been in this world for a really, really long time. They know, and they can easily recall the history of how Microsoft came to be, how they got their first deals. They went and they bought it. The arguments between Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. Steve Jobs, the things he did, they were very, very just dirty individuals. And I mean like just willing to exploit and rip off and corrupt. And we know these things. But then there's a guy who's a truck driver. And you go to him and you say, all of your problems stem from Bill Gates is a billionaire who does these things. And he's going to be like, look, guy, I have no idea how that's going to give me any information I need to get my kids food. But then we can bring it back to their world. We can speak to them on their terms and things they understand and say, hey, should you be forced to do X, Y, or Z by your government? And they'll say no. And it's like, this is the opening of the door. You say the things that directly affect you, that are causing you problems, can be solved if you wake up and start paying attention. But what we get a lot of is George Soros, the left has their Koch brothers, the left has their Mercers. And I've been in these activist groups and I've seen just how ineffective it is to say a word that means nothing to somebody, a name that means nothing to somebody, but think you're giving some great revelation. Joe Rogan just pointed out to Alex Jones when he was on the show on Tuesday that Alex has the problem of knowing. And so when he tries explaining to people and he says really like things that are so out there they don't understand, it actually makes them push away from you. You cannot walk up to a person who's never experienced and who doesn't understand the nitty gritty of what's going on, immediately crank up the dial to 11 and think they'll listen to you.
We're not doing that. We're not jumping up to random people. We're having a talk show where we delve deep into complicated topics. The reason people listen to us is because it's an honest, real conversation that isn't afraid just to be on the surface level. We go deep down, and I think this is why this podcast is so special, because we could do that. And I disagree with your characterization. We're not talking to random people on the street here. We're talking to an informed public that is paying attention, and I don't think everything that happens in this world is a coincidence. I do think there's bad people out there. I do believe there is going to be really bad things that are going to continue to happen unless people realize that these people are actually doing it. And I think that's also a part of the solution, as well as taking personal responsibility for yourself as a human being. And that's something I preach from the very beginning. Be informed of what's going on. Don't be a victim of these people. Move away from them and support systems and structures and businesses that align with your principles, with your morality, and what you believe deep down in yourself.
When I think of like this whole system and like how we fix, I think of it kind of like game theory and military theory. I think of like Band of Brothers taking a bunker. When you have a target, or when you're focusing on like who did that, like let's say you're talking about Bill Gates or whatever, you don't want to like yell out, hey Bill, and like go directly at him, because then you become an easy target. You kind of want to to flank the target and like confuse the target and like I really and ultimately persuade that. I mean, ultimately we're not at war with each other. We're on the same team trying to help society. We just have different methods. So you want to kind of convince the target and.
I think what Luke is doing is looking through a telescope backwards. Because when you start with the people and not with the ideas, people don't understand what you're trying to say. When you tell people about this idea and you say something like, and I really think that Bill Gates is a symptom of this, they may understand it better because that idea affects them directly. Centralization affects people who drive trucks. It affects people who work at small businesses. And this is something that they will understand much better than saying, George Soros is our enemy. It doesn't matter what George Soros is doing. I'm just trying to drive a truck and keep my family in one piece.
People want a symbol of something that they want a symbol to represent what they believe oppresses them or causes them problems and harm. And for a lot of people, it's very easy to just name a person. The thing about Bill Gates, he's a bad guy. He's a pretty bad guy. He does a lot of bad things, a lot of bad ideas. He's, in my opinion, a sociopath. But we're not talking about the other 1,000 billionaires that do the exact same thing. And this is the issue I take with it. It would be impossible for us to actually go through the huge list of all of these powerful global elites of old money and new money, of arrogance and ego, of ill repute, people who are callous, utilitarians who believe in that some people can be sacrificed, who are willing to commit atrocities. People like Fauci, for instance. I mean, this guy is dark. The stuff he's been funding, the lies he said. These are people who just don't care, and there are so many of them. But it can change if people are told very simply, like simple ways to improve their lives, to give them information about basic things that are going on, and you open the door and allow them to walk through it. You don't run up to them, drop kick them and smash them through the window and try and push them outside because they'll freak out. So when it comes to, promoting a cause and trying to convince people to, say, sign up for a nonprofit, become a member, or in something they've never heard of, the one thing I would always do when it came to, how do I convince someone to want to save the forest? You have to make it relatable and start with something they understand, because in my opinion, it's disrespectful to demand someone know something they've never heard of. Mm-hmm. So if you approach it with, here's the guy, here's the bad guy, he's the villain, and then people, like I said, go out with signs saying the villain, everyone else looks at that and says, that is meaningless to me.
I disagree with your characterizations with Linda and yours as well, because I think saying, hey, don't talk about this isn't going to help anything in the long run. And if you've looked at what I've been talking about for a very long time, if you want to look for the person that's responsible for all your woes, for all your problems, you have to look in the mirror. And once you look in the mirror, you start understanding the personal responsibility that you have within yourself to understand what's going on and not fall for the traps.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.